The thing about being a YouTube critic is that every new day brings more recommendations and requests to review someone's favourite movie, or TV show, or video game, or book series. One guy even asked me to review American politics. There's literally not enough beer in the world, mates. But one thing that's been dogging my recommendations list from basically the moment my channel took off is The Expanse. A show that, I have to admit, I knew almost nothing about at the time. I didn't even know anyone that had seen it. And I was kind of reluctant to invest dozens of hours of my life into something that I might not even enjoy. But it turns out that peer pressure is a surprisingly effective tool given enough time. And shit man, if someone managed to get me to watch Quigley Down Under, I suppose it was time I gave The Expanse a try. And a few weeks later, here I am. Now, it pains me to say this, because I know a lot of people really like and support this show, but I was a fucking asshole for not watching it sooner! The Expanse is quite simply one of the best sci-fi shows in recent memory. It's smart, mature, complex, well written, brilliantly shot, and perfectly portrayed by a cast of extremely talented actors who invest their characters with genuine depth, emotion, and gravitas. It basically sets the benchmark for what I expect from sci-fi shows today, and it makes an absolute mockery out of shallow, pretentious garbage like Star Trek Discovery. I don't want to fuck around and waste time with this one, so let's begin the next installment of The Drinker Recommends. The Expanse is set a couple of hundred years in the future, where humanity has managed to spread out and colonize the solar system. We're not exactly into warp drive territory yet, but we have fleets of ships plying their trade between major colonies and outposts, the beginnings of terraforming on Mars, and colony ships preparing to venture out into deep space. That's all great, but it's also a time of heightened tension and danger. Earth and Mars, the two major superpowers in the system, are stuck in a kind of interplanetary Cold War as they vie for resources and influence in the Belt, a collection of moons and asteroids in the outer solar system that provide most of the raw materials for the inner planets. Life out in the Belt is hard and usually very short. A bit like growing up in any city in Scotland then. People toil away in terrible working conditions, only for most of their wealth to get shipped off somewhere else. Needless to say, the Belters are getting kind of tired of this shit, leading to the rise of the Outer Planets Alliance, better known as the OPA. The OPA want to see the Belt become an independent nation on par with Earth and Mars, and the more radical elements within the movement are willing to do almost anything to achieve their aim. The series kicks off when a civilian freighter stops to investigate a derelict ship, only to come under attack by an unknown enemy. The only survivors are a small group of crewmen that happen to be aboard the salvage vessel. There's Naomi, an engineer from the asteroid belt, who sympathises with the OPA. Amos, a big beefy dude with a dark past, who acts as her enforcer, Alex, a former Martian naval pilot, and last of all, Holden, the ranking officer from Earth who eventually takes command. Straight away you can see that this is a mixed group of people from different planets and cultures whose loyalties and goals may not line up with each other. In fact, there's actually plenty of occasions where they come into open conflict, but they're forced to work together for their mutual survival, and eventually they form a close-knit friendship. Their paths eventually cross with Miller, a jaded detective on the hunt for a decent fucking haircut. Miller's been hired to locate a missing rich girl who happened to be on board the derelict ship that Holden's group discovered. Meanwhile on Earth, UN diplomat Christian begins to suspect that a third party is trying to manipulate them into going to war. Wait, isn't that Admiral Chainsmoker from Star Trek Beyond? Anyway, the destruction of Holden's ship triggers a rapid escalation of tensions between Earth and Mars. Both sides blame the other for what happened and mobilise their militaries for war, while the OPA uses the chaos to stir up resentment and support for their cause. But as Holden and the others run for their lives, they begin to uncover a deeper conspiracy to turn a newly discovered alien life form into a weapon powerful enough to wipe out the human race. As I think you've gathered from my brief summary there, there's an awful lot going on in this show, and honestly, if I tried to describe every major event and character that comes into play, I'd probably still be talking about it this time next week. Also, it would spoil the shit out of things for you, and I really don't want to do that, because this is a show that you definitely ought to watch. The thing I really love about The Expanse is that it actually feels like a show written by adults for adults, instead of mentally deficient hyperactive children. The world in which its characters exist is complex, mature, and often morally grey. There are groups and individuals within each major faction vying for power and influence, some trying to instigate a war and others to avert it. Some people are compassionate and moralistic, doing everything in their power to avoid unnecessary loss of life, while others see the end as very much justifying the means. Some are idealistic and dedicated to their cause, others are jaded and cynical, while some just want to be left alone. But no matter what their outlook is, the writing is so strong and well balanced that you can empathise with almost anyone's position. Even antagonists who do bad things are self-aware enough to recognise the impact of their actions, but justify them with the knowledge that they're serving a higher purpose. It's smart and thought-provoking, and at times it actually causes you to question whether or not they might be right. Naomi starts out overbearing and mistrustful towards Holden, but gradually opens up as their relationship develops, only to be plunged into doubt once again when she goes behind her companions' backs to assist the Belts. Christian comes across as a hard-nosed diplomat willing to charm, threaten, or blackmail people into doing whatever she wants, but slowly she emerges as a valuable ally, determined to expose the misdeeds of her co-workers, even if it means putting her own life on the line. Miller begins the story as a jaded cop, willing to take bribes and overlook misdeeds if it means an easier life for himself. But his search for the missing girl gradually rekindles the compassionate, protective side of his character, changing him into a decent, caring man, willing to sacrifice his own life for the good of others. Even characters like Amos, who seems like a big dumb bruiser stranded deep in Naomi's friend zone, turns out to have more layers to his personality and backstory than the entire cast of Disney Star Wars combined. The Expanse is also a perfect example of diverse casting done right. There are people of every sex and ethnic group imaginable represented in virtually every episode, and it absolutely never feels forced, preachy, or contrived, unlike the ham-fisted attempts of lesser shows that always come across as smug, disingenuous, and mean-spirited. Characters are allowed to be smart, resourceful, and dangerous regardless of their demographic makeup. No one group is elevated at the expense of another, and the writers never use it as a stick to beat you over the head with present-day social issues. God damn it, why can't we have more shows like this? The world of The Expanse also feels believable and well thought out, in a way that so few others manage to achieve. The problems of travelling and communicating over vast distances are a key component of many storylines, instead of being glossed over with some bullshit technobabble for the sake of dramatic convenience. Battles taking place on one side of the solar system are over long before people on the other side are even aware of them. Gravity can vary wildly between different worlds, and so do the humans born and raised there. For example, people from Mars struggle just to walk in Earth's heavy gravity, while those from the asteroid belt literally can't survive it. Ships maneuvering at high speed can easily kill their passengers with the G-force if they're not careful, while space debris can punch clean through the hull, and human bodies. It all adds up to a setting that feels grounded and realistic, like this is how humanity really could be 100 years from now. Space is depicted as a vast, cold, dangerous place where it's very easy to get yourself killed. Each faction and location has its own unique culture, language, technology, and ships. Mars is a rising power, and everything about them is sleek, clinical, and futuristic. Earth's the dominant force in the solar system, but they're a civilization in decline. Their navy is powerful but aging and neglected, their people arrogant and corrupt. The Belters, on the other hand, are scrappy and resourceful, getting around in cobbled together rust buckets that barely run. It's also a world where life is often hard and unforgiving, death can come without warning, and people are forced to make tough choices just to survive. Like an evacuation ship that doesn't have enough space to get everyone out of a dying settlement. So what do? Do you open your doors and risk being overrun to save a fraction of the population? Or do you cut and run to protect your own people? These are the kind of difficult choices that characters often face in The Expanse, and needless to say, sometimes there is no right answer for them. Ultimately, The Expanse is a show that really demonstrates what good science fiction can and should be. It's proof that there are still smart, talented and passionate writers working in Hollywood, and when they're just left alone to concentrate on telling a tight, gripping and mature story without ulterior motives, great things can still happen. And my only question is Why can't more shows be like this? Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.